What's up, girls? I just read Death of the Moth by Virginia Woolf. It's a very short essay of hers. It is kind of a classic essay to read if you're a writer or studying literature or going after like a creative writing MFA or something like that. It's one of those essays that feels like almost kind of trite, I think, because it's been like emulated so much or ripped off so much. But this was probably one of the first essays to do what she does, which is basically like she's sitting there trying to do something. She observes a moth flying around, realizes that the moth is struggling, is at the end of its life, and then observes as it passes away. But because it's so short, it's kind of this like masterclass in observation being turned into some kind of psychological consequence or some kind of philosophical moment. So much literature does that today, where it's like you have one character say something to another character and it puts them into like an interesting kind of moral question that it almost feels kind of obvious, weirdly enough, reading her essay. But she in early modernism is one of the first writers to really do that. So that happens like sometimes they used to happen like watching old classic movies for me, is like you would have, I don't know, a movie that pulls off like a famous kind of plot twist and was the first to do it, but because it was so famous and impactful on the scope of cinema, you've now seen like a million movies do that as you were growing up, and so it's almost kind of hard to appreciate it out of its context. But yeah, I think the essay, one thing that really stuck out to me about the essay is, the protagonist, who's like probably just her, is trying to read outside and do whatever they've planned to do with their life. And they're kind of thrown into conflict with the nature of the world just by kind of witnessing this moth and then having all these thoughts stirred up in their head about like the nature of mortality, and like attention and life and energy and all these things. And I think that's very true, that sometimes like we try to map out our lives in these specific ways, and then something just kind of comes at you or grabs your attention, and you never would have expected yourself to be thinking about things like that on a given day. But that is kind of how you confront things like that. It's kind of random and they come at you. But anyway, Death of the Moth, Virginia Woolf essay. Check it out.